Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia. I'm a client success manager at ClickUp. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day or night to attend our advanced customer service webinar. I'm sure many of you may have attended the beginner session last week, so I'm looking forward to building on what we discussed last week, or for those of you that are, this is maybe your first webinar you've attended, hoping to give you some more advanced tips on managing your customer service workflows. So it's great to see we have a good number of participants here. I'd love to get a chat from anyone who wants to give me a shout out to let me know where you're tuning in from. Feel free to let me know in the Zoom chat. It's always really exciting for me to see where everyone is coming from. So as I mentioned, the webinar today is, of course, going to cover some more advanced ClickUp features. We're not going to be going into immense detail on the different levels of the hierarchy. We're going to be focused more on things like automation, monitoring team efficiency and reports, delegating workloads, and creating internal knowledge bases with our ClickUp docs. So I have some colleagues from the customer support team on the webinar as well, and they'll be here to help moderate any questions that you may have as I'm going through the demo. So please feel free to send in any questions you have into the Q&A Zoom tab, and our support reps will be happy to answer those questions. The chat tab is a great place to chat internally with one another, but just note that we will only be moderating the Q&A tab for your questions. And then at the end, I'll also take some time to answer your questions live related to customer service. It's great to see, oh, great, we've got people from Melbourne, Rhode Island, Idaho, Texas, the woods of New York, Johannesburg, Atlanta, the Philippines. That's awesome. Canada, Sweden. So really exciting. Thank you all for staying up late wherever you are to be at the webinar today. If you have some teammates that weren't able to attend today, we are recording the webinar. So we will be sending the recording to you once it's over and posting it on our website so you can share it with others or watch it at your convenience. And with that, I think that's all of our housekeeping notes. Tim, I'm glad that you are still alive in Chicago. We've got some people from Florida and Arizona as well, so that's awesome to see. But on that note, we can jump into the webinar. All right, so last week we spent a lot of time explaining how you can use our ready-made folder templates in a customer service space to start managing things like a CRM, maybe a bug or ticket queue. But I also wanted to show you how you could do things like create a support doc based for yourself. So I've created a new folder here called Support Docs, which is kind of similar how we internally manage our support docs at ClickUp. So it's one repository that our team can go to see all of the different docs we've created for our clients to help them learn about features, integrations, importing into ClickUp, all of that stuff. So inside of this list, I've created two lists to categorize the types of docs that we've created for our clients. So you could do something similar if you build out a help knowledge base for your clients. You could do something like this to categorize those resources. And then inside of each list, we have a task for, in this case, a relevant feature. So our me mode feature, email task creation, assigned comments. I've also set up statuses at the folder level for this support docs folder. So as a reminder, you can set up statuses in ClickUp at different levels of the hierarchy. So the simplest way is to set them up at the space level, but in this case, I've created a distinct workflow for my support docs repository because it's obviously a little bit of a different workflow than my clients in the CRM folder would need. So in here, we can see that I'm using these statuses to keep track of feature docs that I'm drafting up, that are published and active, that need some updating, or that have been deleted and aren't really relevant features anymore. Inside of each task, I've then created a ClickUp doc. So this is another really great feature to reduce all of your context switching. So you're not switching between, you know, Google Drive and ClickUp, or if you use a platform like Notion, you can use docs to just keep that whole knowledge repository in ClickUp. So in this doc, I've created a little breakdown with rich editing that I can use to teach my clients how to use this feature. So as you can see, I can hyperlink text in my ClickUp docs. I can embed GIFs and videos. I can even create headers and checklists. So it really has all of the rich editing you need to get your point across in a clean format. And then you can share these docs publicly with people outside of ClickUp. So you could embed this link on your company website or on a help portal so that your clients can read about this feature. We use these as well for our release notes. So every week when we release new features, we'll create a ClickUp doc, and that way we have a record of all of our release notes inside of ClickUp as well that we can reference. So here you'll note that my doc is created in the task, but docs can actually be created in a couple of different places. So just something to note. So the other place that you can create docs would be tied to a space, folder, or list. So for example, let's say I wanted to create a doc tied to my features list to create kind of a standard operating procedure for how people should write feature docs for my client success team. So that would be an example of when I'd want to tie that doc to a specific location. And then lastly, you have your docs home area. So docs home is going to be one giant repository for all of the docs you have access to in ClickUp. So once you start creating your feature docs or knowledge bases, you'll be able to see them in one collection here, no matter where they live in the platform. Another way that you can think about using our docs would be, or a similar structure to this would be to create a saved responses repository. So of course, a lot of times, you know, customer service teams are writing tens to hundreds of emails a day, and you're encountering those common questions that come up. You don't want to have to rewrite your answers to those questions manually every time. So it's a good idea to create a repository of just standard responses that you can use for those common questions. So to show you how you might set something up like this, it'll look a bit similar to how I've broken up my support docs folder. I'm going to add in a new folder to our customer service space. And I'll call this saved responses. And we can use lists again to categorize responses by type. So maybe at ClickUp, we get a lot of questions about setup. So setup and hierarchy might be a category that I would use, or pricing. So just using these to categorize your different types of responses. And then inside of each list, we'll create tasks for the actual responses that we're going to make. So hierarchy description. So this could be a response that I would create to explain how our ClickUp hierarchy works for new users. So if I'm clicking this open, inside of my task description is a great place where I can write out my response. I can include any rich editing that I want. And then I'll have one record where I can come in and let's say when I have 100 different responses in here, I want to quickly search and see, okay, what responses can I find that relate to the hierarchy? I can just search for that keyword and pull up the exact response I'm looking for. This might also be an instance where you'd want to set up folder level statuses that are different from the statuses at the parent space level. So to keep track of responses that need editing or that are active, you could always edit these statuses a little bit and then delegate tasks to different support reps that will need to keep track of these and edit them. And the last thing that you might want to do in relation to the support doc folder that we created, that I created earlier, would be for your support doc folder, you could create one kind of parent doc into which you can link all of your internal help docs with different pages. So as an example, let's say I want to create a master doc where I can link all of my different support docs. So in here, I can actually come in and add various nested pages, one per each doc. So this will be my master doc. And then inside of this, I can create a page for each feature and integration doc that I've made. So we looked at that email task creation doc. I can even mention that doc directly here by hitting @3 times on my keyboard. So now I have a link to that doc that I made in my task. I can click to open it up at any time. I can even embed it directly inside of my other docs. So it's a good way to kind of keep all of the repositories in one place and reference them at any time. In our last webinar, we also chatted a little bit about how to use forms to create a ticketing system in ClickUp. So just as a quick refresher, our form view is one of our page view options, and this is a great way to streamline your intake process and create tasks in ClickUp from the information you collect. So for example, for my folder called bug queues, I have a form that clients fill out to tell me if they're encountering a bug. And it has these different fields in here so that they can provide, a video of the issue, priority, all of that good stuff. And then once they submit the form, it's going to be added as a new task into my list called hotfix. Now, what people will often do in conjunction with the forms is they will set up automation so that there'll be set triggers and actions in place for your workflow so that when the form comes into my hotfix list, I can do something based on the fields it contains. So you can set up the automation anywhere where you see this little robot guy. For example, let's say I wanted to set up some automation for my hotfix list. I can click here. There are some simple automations you can set up right away. So for example, if I always wanted to be assigned to tasks that come into this list, I can opt in for this. Or I can always add certain people as watchers to tasks created here to ensure that they will get notified about them. And with the add automation option, I can get really customizable about the automations I'm going to create. So we do have some set categories here that you can explore, but you might also want to add in custom automations here. So for example, let's say that I want to make sure that if a task comes in from that form and it has an urgent priority, our customer service manager is added as an assignee. So I could say something like, when the task is created in this list, and add a condition. So only when this condition is true will the automation be prompted. So when the priority is urgent, then I'm going to assign the task to my manager. Or you could do something like when the status changes from anything to closed, so we've resolved the issue, I want to ping my technical support rep with a comment to tell him, please follow up with the client. So you can actually layer different automation options on top of one another, but that gives you an idea of how you can start to structure your workflows once you get tickets coming into ClickUp via forms. Now, up until recently, you were only able to set up automations rather at the list level because automations are currently in beta. That was a bit tedious because you'd have to proceed to each individual list's automation menu to set that up. But now you can actually set up automation at the folder level or even for an entire space. So that'll make it much quicker if you want to set up some automation rules that will govern, all the tasks in a space or a folder, you can set that up. Let's chat now about how to monitor your customer support team's efficiency. So before we jump into dashboards, I just wanted to bring the conversation back to how to create high-level views, which we chatted a little bit about in our previous webinar. But as a manager, you might be looking to get a really easy count on, how many tickets is each person assigned to and completing a day, or how many tasks does someone have on their plate. So what I would do in a similar instance would be create a high-level view, maybe for your whole customer service space. We can add in a new task view to see that information. So I prefer to work in the list view, but again, you can create any type of task view that you like. And our tasks now are being grouped by their statuses, but in this case, I'm going to change the grouping to group by assignee. So I can see for each of my reps that I'm managing how many tasks they are assigned to. You could also add in some sorting. So if you wanted to sort by due date to see the most overdue or imminent tasks at the top of each person's group, you'd be able to see that and keep track of how they're completing them, what the status is of their tasks. So you can check in with them there. One other way to quickly gain insight into what other people are doing and delegate resources to them would be to check out their profile. So anywhere that you see someone's profile avatar or their name, you're able to click on that and access their profile. And this is essentially looking into this person's inbox, if you're familiar with our inbox feature. So in the profile area, I can see what this person is assigned to that is due today and what is actually overdue for them that they haven't yet done. I can see what's coming up next for them, and I can see what they've recently completed. You can also check up on their activity. So if you want to see what tasks someone's been working on recently, or even filter to see certain types of activity, you're able to check that out here. And this is also a great place to create reminders for people. So if you want to remind someone to do, just give them a quick reminder, not like a task that involves a status or a description, but just something to get them to take quick action. This is a nice place to do that. So in this reminder, you can add attachments as well. If you wanted to attach a doc or a spreadsheet, for example, you can set up a date for when you want this to pop up in their inbox. And you can also choose if you want to get a little browser reminder when their reminder is due, so you can be notified and make sure that it's done. And since I gave this reminder to her today, it's popped up in her today section, and she can check it off whenever it's done, and I can come back here and see what I've delegated to her and what was and what was not completed. Let's chat a little bit about dashboard reporting as well for customer service. So your dashboard area is in the left sidebar over here. And this is a great place to get that high level perspective on team progress. So, you know, you can measure velocity of closing tickets or workload based on status. All of that stuff can be monitored in a customer success dashboard. So you can create dashboards for pretty much anything. Ordinarily, we'll see dashboards dedicated to specific departments or maybe a big initiative that you're working towards, or even a personal work dashboard. But once you make a dashboard, you can add in various widgets to see task data in different ways. So a few of the widgets that I've created here, one of them would be the bar chart widget. So I've created this to keep track of unresolved urgent tickets that have come into our bug queues folder. All of our widgets pretty much can be filtered by location. So I could choose to see a lot more data in here, but right now I'm just choosing to see one folder. I've put assignees on my x-axis and tasks on my y-axis, so I can see for each person how many unresolved urgent tickets they have. And I've also added a filter to only show done or closed tasks, or to not show done or closed tasks rather. So we can get a breakdown of that here. Over here, I have a calculation widget, so I can keep track of all of my open bug tickets in the customer service space. And I've filtered to just show active status tasks, so tasks that are not closed or done. This is a velocity chart that I've created, so I can keep track of how much work is done in a given sprint, or just in this case, just think of it as a given time range. So right here, I've shown the last 12 months as my time range, but it's broken down by week. So for each week, I can see the average velocity of tickets being closed versus on a weekly basis, you know, how many tickets did my team close per week. And then finally over here, we have a pie chart to keep track of statuses grouped by, or tasks grouped by status. So here I can see within my client tickets list and the bug queues folder, I'm breaking down all of my tasks by status. So I can come in here and say, okay, how many tickets are in progress? How many are being investigated, etc. So those are just a few examples of the widgets you might want to play around with in the dashboard area. Just a few other things to touch on. So the workload view is also a great way to see what people have on their plate and redelegate tasks as needed. So the workload view is another one of our task view options. It's definitely the best one for capacity planning. And I've created a workload view for my customer service space. So the workload view lets you see over a rolling date period who has scheduled tasks. And you can choose if you want to see 1 week or 2 weeks on your workload view. But you can basically measure workload here in a few ways, but today we'll just be covering measuring workload based on time or tasks. So let's start with measuring workload based on tasks. So with this option, you can set a daily capacity for how many tasks each person should be able to take on per day. And then day by day, you can see how close is someone to meeting that capacity, who's getting a little overloaded, who has room to take on more work. And then any tasks that are unscheduled will be shown in the right sidebar. So I can actually drag and drop that task onto someone's agenda if I want to schedule it out for them. Now, you'll note that if a task spans multiple days, so for example, this task here, this task has a start date of yesterday and a due date of tomorrow. It's going to it's going to count as one task between its start and end date. So it's basically just going to show 1 out of 5 tasks capacity per day. The other way to measure workload is based on time. So if we click to open up a task, we can set up an estimate to show how long we think that task will take to finish. So this is a great one if you're, managing a lot of bug reports or something, and you need to really be clear about how long you need to dedicate to squash each bug. You can add in an estimate here. And then again, you'll set a weekly capacity as to how many hours someone can take on per week. You can even set a daily capacity if you like. And then day by day, I can see how close is someone to meeting that capacity. You'll also see that if a task, again, spans multiple days, the estimate is going to be broken up evenly across its start and end dates. Now, ordinarily, I'll always use the assignee grouping option in the workload view, but if you wanted to, you could also group by something else. So for example, if you wanted to group a workload view by status to kind of group all of your tasks or tickets by status and really see where everything is at, how many tasks of a certain status your team has on their plates, you would be able to group by different criteria. The last big thing that I wanted to cover today would be how you can create a training template for new CS reps and remap dates in the template. So of course, training can be a bit of a challenge, especially if you're quite busy in your own role. So it's good to have some templated processes in place that make it easier to onboard new people. So I have a folder I've created here called Customer Service Training, and lists for the different things that my customer service rep will need to master. So focusing on product knowledge and just the client success role itself. And then my tasks in each respective list will be different to-dos that they'll need to complete to learn about my product, and also what they'll need to know about their role and its expectations. So when you're creating this template, I'd recommend adding start and end dates to kind of pace this out at a good cadence for your new reps. So schedule out these tasks in a way that seems realistic, that they'd be able to complete it. Maybe in this case, I'll just do scheduling 1 task per day. And then whenever I come up with a structure I like, I can save the structure of this folder as a template. When you create your template, you can choose who you want to share it with. Maybe in this case, you just want to share it with admins who will be responsible with training new people, and also choose what you want to carry over in the template. So either all fields or just a few specific fields. And once the template is made, let's say I am now getting ready to onboard a new rep and I need to add in this template for them to complete. So next to my customer service space name, I can access the templates menu. And I'm able to see that client success training template that I just made. So my new rep is John Smith, and we can choose what we want to import from the template. As far as various fields, probably wouldn't want to carry over assignees in this instance because I want to assign them all to him. And we also can check into due dates. So we don't want to remap, or we don't want to import the due dates as is. We want to remap them because John is going to be starting in 2 weeks. So we need to make sure that all of the dates are remapped accordingly. So there are 2 ways you can do this. So the first is to actually set a start date. So this is in this example, that would probably be the best solution. I'll choose his start date, and then ClickUp will remap all of the subsequent task dates based off of that start date. You can also remap based off of an end date. So for example, if you have a final project deadline that you know you can't go past, you can enter that date, and then ClickUp will remap the previous tasks based off of that deadline. Skip weekends if you don't want tasks to fall on weekends. And then in this case, I would also import all tasks as open status so that they're fresh and they're not closed out. All right, so our new folder has been created, and we can see that all of our dates have been pushed back based on that first start date that I applied. So they're ready for him to jump into. The last thing that I can do to make this really easy for me to assign the tasks to John would be to use the Multitask Toolbar. So with this, I can actually select an entire list in bulk. And in the toolbar at the top of my screen, I can make changes to the tasks in bulk. So in this case, I'm going to set all of the assignees. Let's pretend this is John Smith, and he is now assigned to all of the tasks. And maybe I'll set myself as a watcher because I want to be notified as his manager that he has completed all of his tasks. So those are just a few more advanced examples of how you can start delving more into ClickUp for customer service. Just a few final tips before I jump into any questions that you may have. Under the integrations area of your settings, just a reminder that you can integrate ClickUp with a lot of external ticketing platforms. So if you do use something like Intercom or Zendesk, we have integrations that are really simple ways to link those tickets to ClickUp. So you can really bring your tasks and tickets together and link everything, not have to switch back and forth and try to remember things just at the back of your head. And then the very last thing that I did want to note, which I mentioned last week as well, but an exciting new feature that we have coming up, hopefully in the next week or two, is our email from ClickUp option. So with the release of that feature, you will actually be able to, from a task comment, send an email to anyone. So if you collect a task submitted via a form from a client, you would be able to actually email the client from this comment, let them know that you're looking into it. And when they respond to that email, it's going to become a comment thread in the task. So you can you'll be able to email your client back and forth from this task, and they won't even know that you're doing it from ClickUp. It'll just look like a normal email exchange to them. So that's going to be a real game changer and should be out pretty soon. So you can actually manage all of your ticketing directly in ClickUp. All right. So with that, I'm going to take a look at the Q&A tab a little bit. So the first question I see was from Tim. She says, oh, so the previous webinar that I was referring to is the customer service for beginners webinar in which we discussed the CRM template. So if you are logged into your ClickUp account and you click on the question mark button, you'll be able to navigate to the webinar option, or you can simply go to clickup.com/webinar, and you'll be able to see all of our previous webinar recordings. The most recent was the beginner customer service webinar, in which you will be able to learn more about the basics. So the second question that I see is from an anonymous attendee. It says, does every user see the list of spaces arranged in a personalized, custom way, or do they get updated when someone rearranges them? I'd like to be able to reorganize the spaces and have everyone to have a top-down priority that gets reflected when I rearrange them. So rearranging the spaces themselves in the sidebar, I believe that is a personal setting. So right now I only have one space in my sidebar, but let me see if I have a couple. You could drag and drop spaces around, but my understanding off the top of my head is that this is a personal setting that wouldn't be, the change wouldn't be visible to your other users in the workspace, but you can create views for your teammates that will cause them to see all of the tasks in this space in a specific way. So for example, if I wanted to create a view while viewing everything, or while in my customer service space to make sure my teammates are seeing tasks in a specific way, I can do that, create a new view, add any sorting, filtering, and grouping that I want. And then I can use the view options menu to make it the default view for everyone, so that anytime someone clicks on this customer service space, they're going to see this view first. You would also be able to turn on protect view if you're on our business plan or above. And that will allow you to prevent anyone from making changes to the layout of the view unless you give them permission to do so. So this is a good one if you want to make sure people aren't going to mess around with your sorting and filtering. Just turn this on and they won't be able to do that. Delmo, you ask, is it possible to calculate a customer's age in a custom field from a customer's date of birth and the task created? I created a form to receive demands from my clients, and having their age would be interesting. They provide the date of birth through the form. That's an interesting question. The only way that I can think to do that would be via a formula field. So let's say, no, but you can't really use that with the date the task was created. I want to play around with this for a minute though. Let's say that for my John Smith folder, I'm going to add in a date custom field for birthday. And just throw a few things in here. You could create a view grouped by date just to make it easier to see tasks coming up in the future. If this one was in the past, that could be a way to kind of keep track of your customers' birthdays that are coming up. But as far as the age piece, I can't really think of a way to do that based on date created and the date of birth that they provide. But that's an interesting suggestion for sure. And I'll just stick around for another couple of minutes and if there are any other questions. Richard, you ask, can you change how dates are shown in columns, like date updated to show date in different ways, such as count of days or always show September 30th instead of Monday, Tuesday, and then the date. Yeah, that's a feature request I've heard from some other folks as well, in terms of not wanting to see, you know, if I added a date field of Thursday, it says tomorrow and not September 11th. It says today instead of September 10th. There isn't really a way to change that at the moment. The only customization we offer at the moment in regard to dates would be found in the My Settings area here. And this applies for time and date formats. So if you don't like the American dates format, you can change that. Or if you want the 24-hour format, you could change that here. But that's really the only customization we offer at the moment. Jennifer, you asked, can you organize the tasks within a folder in alphabetical order? So what you can do is you can, inside of a folder, sort lists alphabetically. So you'll notice when I'm clicking on the ellipses next to this folder, I can reorder lists A to Z. And then for tasks, if I clear this sorting here, I do have the option to sort tasks by name. So if I click on this little header up here and sort tasks by name, that will reorder tasks alphabetically in the folder. Yeah, you're welcome. Brian, you ask, very interested in the upcoming feature you mentioned about using comments to communicate with stakeholders via email, like a simple ticketing solution. How far out is that in the future? So I do know that it's really being actively worked on. We can't really guarantee a precise release date, but I think we're anticipating it will come out in the next several weeks. So be on the lookout for that. And Tim, I'm glad that you enjoyed the webinar. Thanks so much for attending. Dustin, you ask, regarding age, there's a function for days since a particular date, but I don't see one that will do it in years. Yeah, we do have some formula field options, which are great to allow you to calculate, you know, add, subtract, multiply, or divide various numeric fields. And in the advanced editor area, you'd be able to create formulas with some other variables. So like, yeah, maybe that would work with date created and birthday. You could try creating some sort of a formula to work that out. But Dustin, I kind of echo your sentiment. I don't think that it will do it in years for this solution. But if you have further questions about that, feel free to reach out to our support team via email at help@clickup.com. Dominique, you ask, is there a way to avoid duplicate entries in tasks? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by duplicate entries. If you mean duplicate subtasks or duplicate tasks being added. In either case, there isn't a way to prevent that at the moment, but you would always be able to search tasks by their name. If you click on the magnifying glass or hit S on your keyboard, you could actually search for keywords in a name and track to see if there are tasks, multiple tasks with the same name, so you'd be able to delete them if you wanted to. Lydia, you ask, if starting a CRM from scratch, what are the pros and cons of creating the CRM directly in ClickUp versus creating the CRM in HubSpot and linking the two? Basically, your competitive advantage versus HubSpot's competitive advantage. Yeah, so, well, the first thing is that HubSpot is not a great communication tool. Honestly, I use it internally to manage some of our sales tasks, but while it is kind of great to keep your client fields all in one place and you can keep track of deals and everything, there's really not a great area to communicate with your internal teammates, which is a huge part of managing your customers, obviously. So if you did want to do that, you would be able to connect ClickUp to HubSpot via Zapier. And Zapier is basically a tool that you can use to connect ClickUp to like 1,000 different apps. So to give you an idea of what is possible with this integration, you can set up various triggers and actions. So like, for example, when a new contact is added to HubSpot, you would be able to create a new task in ClickUp. And that would be an easy way to connect the platforms, but by putting it all directly in ClickUp, you'll really be able to have all of your client portfolios, important fields related to their accounts all in one place. We can see here we have a CRM folder template in our customer service space that gives you an idea of how you could manage this really simply. We have a task per client and then fields to manage their account size, email address, next steps, what their plan is. So custom fields are a great way to track all of that. And once we have our email from ClickUp feature in place, I think really that's going to be a game changer in terms of managing a CRM, because you'll actually be able to email your clients directly from ClickUp. So yeah, I think with the communication tools ClickUp offers internally at the moment, like chats and comment threads and custom fields, that's really going to be the cleanest place to both communicate with your teammates and keep track of your client database in one place. Jose, you asked, in order to use the workload report, we need to define all of the we need to define with all the tasks the time estimate. I noticed that you can define the start date and time and also the due date and time. It is not possible to use that data to calculate the estimate of a task. So that's a good question, but the due date and start date are distinct from the time estimate. So basically, the fact that this task has, let's say if I defined a start and end date for this task of from yesterday to today, that wouldn't automatically set up an estimate of like 48 hours or something. The estimate's going to be distinct. You're basically saying, I want this task to be started and ended during this period, but it's only going to take me 2 hours to get it done. So the way our workload view works is if a task is scheduled, then it's going to appear in the view. If it's not scheduled, it's going to stay in the right sidebar over here. And then if the scheduled task has an estimate, it's going to count towards the capacity of that person for the day on which it's scheduled. So you would have to add in the estimate separate from the dates. Julie, you ask, along with emailing directly from comments, will the emailing a list address to create tasks also be getting some improvements? Currently, no info other than message content is added to the created task, no sender email address even. So it sounds like you are referring to our email task creation feature. And this will allow you to send emails directly to ClickUp. So you'd copy the address of the list into which you want to deposit your emailed task. And then you can add in all of these various fields that you want to be carried over in the task. Now, if you're not getting some like basic information as far as the like sender's address or the email isn't coming through as an attachment, that would be something that would be great to email our support team about to look into why certain fields we would expect to carry over are not. So I know that we are considering adding some more functionality to this feature, but for now, this is what should definitely be coming over. And if not, definitely please reach out to our support team to chat more about why you might not be seeing some of this. Richard, you ask, I am keen to understand how I can enforce quality of documents through peer review and approvals, as most of my team hate documentation writing. Is there a webinar or similar on setting up document templates, define a minimal viable product, and then subsequent review and approve? That's a really good suggestion. I don't currently have that slated, but I'll definitely make a note of that, Richard. I think that would be a great topic to include in the future. But honestly, our we like I mentioned, we put all of our release notes in ClickUp, and we use tasks in order to review them, monitor their continued quality, all of that stuff. So I would recommend checking out some of our release notes, which you can find at docs.clickup.com. And actually, it looks like these, we used to keep our release notes in Intercom, but we now do them we send them out from ClickUp, which is why they're not in Intercom. But yeah, if you're on our release notes mailing list, you'll see what our docs look like. But I'll note that suggestion for the future. I think that's a good idea. There's a question. Do you have a similar chat feature to Slack? I thought I saw that feature. Yes, we do. So the chat view feature is a great way, in addition to the task comment thread, to have a higher level conversation with your team. So for example, for my CRM folder, I've created a chat view for my high priority accounts. I can @mention my teammate, just like you can in a comment thread, to notify them. And I can also mention resources that I've made here. So I can mention a task like I have here, so that my teammate can see exactly what client I'm talking about and open that task. I can also mention a doc. So if I have a doc that I've created with like a client's onboarding expectations, I could link that in there that they can open up. So this is a good way to keep ClickUp, keep your chats in ClickUp. And then if you did want to continue to use Slack, we also have a really great integration with Slack, which you can set up to create tasks in ClickUp via Slack, unfurl ClickUp tasks in Slack, send notifications from ClickUp to Slack. So this is a very robust integration that we actually use ourselves internally here at ClickUp. All right. I'll just leave it open for Richard. I would love to be in Australia right now, because honestly, the fires in Northern California are getting pretty brutal, but I'll definitely work on you moving the US closer to Australia so that you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. Definitely appreciate you being here. And I did want to note, for anyone that isn't such an early riser, you can always review our previous webinars in the help portal here. So you don't have to, register. If you can't make it, you can always come here and review some past sessions. But if you did want to see what else we have on our immediate horizons as far as webinars, that's under the upcoming webinar section. So yeah, we have some exciting ones coming up. If you have suggestions for webinars you'd like to see, we'd also love to hear about that as well. Yeah, it was great to get so many awesome questions. You guys always make me think on these webinars, and it's very great to see that you're so interested in the platform. Definitely appreciate all of our international folks who are here at odd hours as well. And again, if you have any questions as you continue to play around with these features, our support team is here to help. So you can either email them at help@clickup.com or feel free to connect with us via chat from your help portal here. But in any case, I hope to see you at a future webinar, and have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Thanks.